face is not fully covering.
Then
Huh? Only this one.
well, they either put it up or down, no?
No. Generally it comes, but when you see the video, it becomes like here it comes.
It has the same height, yeah. This is called illusion.
Action.
We have to introduce the traditional. Jai Radha Madhava Kund Bihari Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Kund Bihari Radha Madhava Kund Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Jamuna Tera Vanasari Jamuna Tera Vanasari Radha Madhava Kund Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kund Bihari Radha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Jamuna Tera Vanasari Jamuna Tera Vanasari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Radha Madhava Radha Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Soda Pimanande, Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa, Pri Vrajkacharya Stotra Satya, Sri Samad, His Divine Grace, Sirabai Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, ISKCON BBT, Founder Charya's Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Samava Tavakta Vrinda Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Jainitai Gaur Primalande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
There used to be a time when devotees would offer their dandavats properly. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Dakshuranmiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Juta Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Saptakansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Ram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, and let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sridham Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki. And by regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Sloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swaschayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantara, as the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Sarabhyai Namaha. Mukam karoti vasalampa gomrangayate girim yatkripa tumaham bande Sri Gurum Dinatharanam yatkripa tumaham bande Sri Gurum Dinatharanam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We are continuing from canto number 7, chapter 13, entitled The Behavior of a Perfect Person. And today we're reading a few texts beginning with 31. Adhyatmika Adibihi Dukair Avimuktasya
Avimuktasya
Karhichit
Karhichit
Martyasya
Matyasya
Richropanatair
Vricho
Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim Adhyatmika Vidir Dukhair Abhimuktasya Karhichit
Avimuktasya Karhichit
Martyasya Kristropanatair
Matyasya Vricho Patanay
Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim
Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim
Adhyat Mika Dibhir Dukhair
Adhyatmika Vidukkai
Avimuktasya Karhichit
Avimuktasya Karhichit
Martyasya Kristri Punatair
Matyasya Vricho Panatai
Martyasya Kristri Punatair
Matyasya Vricho
Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim Adhyat Mika Dibhir Dukhair Avimuktasya Karhichit Martyasya Krishrupanatair Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim Adhyatmikadibhir Dukhair Avimuktasya Karhichit Matyasya Krishrupanatair Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim
Adhyatmikadibhir dukkai
Adhyatmikadibhir Dukhair
Avimuktasya karhichit
Avimuktasya Karhichit
Matyasya Krichopanatai
Martyasya Krishrupanatair
Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim
Arthai Kamai Kriyeta Kim Adhyatmika Adibihi Adhyatmika Adi Daivika and Adi Bhautika Dukkai by the threefold miseries of material life. Avimuktasya, one who is not freed from such miserable conditions, or one who is subjected to birth, death, and old age and disease. Karhichit, sometimes, Martyasya, of the living entity, subjected to death. Krishra Upanatai, things obtained because of severe miseries. Arthai, even if some benefit is derived. Kamai, which can fulfill one's material desires. Kriyeta, what do they do?
What do they do?
Kim,
Kim.
and what is the value
And what is the value
of such happiness?
of such happiness?
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Materialistic activities are always mixed with the three kinds of miserable conditions: Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. Therefore, even if one achieves some success by performing such activities, what is the benefit of this process? What is the benefit of this success? One is still subjected to birth, death, old age, disease, and the reactions of his fruitive activities. So kind of repeat after me. Materialistic activities are always mixed with three kinds of miserable conditions: Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. Therefore, even if one achieves some success by performing such activities, what is the benefit of this success? One is still subjected to birth, death, old age, disease, and the reactions of his fruitive activities. Purport. According to the materialistic way of life, if a poor man, after laboring very, very hard, gets some material benefit at the end of his life, he is considered a success, even though he again dies while suffering the threefold miseries: Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. And no one can escape the threefold miseries of materialistic life, namely miseries pertaining to the body and mind, miseries pertaining to the difficulties imposed by society, community, nation, and other living entities, and miseries inflicted upon us by natural disturbances from earthquakes, famines, droughts, floods, epidemics, and so on. If one works very hard, suffering the threefold miseries, and then is successful in getting some small benefit, what is the value of this benefit? Besides that, even if a karmi is successful in accumulating some material wealth, he still cannot enjoy it, for he must die in bereavement. I have even seen a dying man begging a medical attendant to increase his life by 4 years so that he could complete his material plans. Of course, the medical man was unsuccessful in expanding the life of the man, who therefore died in great bereavement. Everyone must die in this way, and after one's mental condition is taken into account, by the laws of material nature, he is given another chance to fulfill his desires in a different body. Material plans for material happiness have no value, but under the spell of the illusory energy, we consider them extremely valuable. There were many politicians, social reformers, and philosophers who died very miserably without deriving any practical value from their material plans. Therefore, a sane and sensible man never desires to work hard under the conditions of the threefold miseries, only to die in disappointment. So this saintly Brahmana is explaining how everyone is subjected to the influence of these
Threefold.
huh?
Threefold.
Of these threefold miseries of life, as described here. And therefore, regardless of which species of life we are born into, and regardless of high status we may attain, even in human form of life, Prabhupada was telling how, yes, one may be born, for example, in the palace and as a king, so it means materially one will be considered better off, but the pains of taking birth remain the same. The toothache that one gets as a cobbler or as a king, that same pain is there. So wherever we may be, in whatever condition, up or down, high or low, in the material world, as long as we are having connection with these modes of material nature, as long as we are not understanding what is the real goal and purpose of life, unless we take up the standard recommended process which is given in the Shastra, which will be elaborated upon in the pages to come, then our conditions remains a miserable condition. It is nicely explained by our acharyas how one who takes up to the recommended normal process of bhakti yoga, the end result is that one gets freed from these. One gets freed from two things. What are the two things that one gets freed from? Those who actually take up devotional service and perfect that process of devotional service, they become freed from the effect of these threefold miseries of life, and also they also become unaffected by the threefold, the three modes of material nature, the influence of the three modes of material nature. So this is a hard lesson in life that everyone needs to learn, that regardless, as long as we are here in the material world, by the laws of nature, we are forced to to experience in so many different ways. And proportionately, to the extent that we break these laws or go against the laws of nature, just like any ordinary citizen, the more he breaks the laws of the land, then he will, if like some people, they get speeding tickets because they don't follow the signs on the highway limit, speed limit, 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers, whatever. So the more we are going against these laws of nature, it means that actually over and above the man-made laws, and that's why this is only known to individuals who are fortunate to come in contact with this knowledge, with these scriptures. There are subtle laws, actually many, many subtle laws of material nature that are generally unknown to individuals. Many of these laws directly, naturally affect our living condition. And they have to do, Krishna's arrangement is so fine, so refined, so perfect, isn't it? That he controls what is going on in the material world. For example, I think it was last year during the rainy season in South India. I had heard this before also, but during the rainy season, especially in South India, where it's quite prominent, quite heavy, the local people, this is like common knowledge, they have names for different times, like practically every 2 weeks, different types of clouds that have different name and have different purpose. And the people who traditionally are doing agriculture, they know that I can only do this after this particular thing happens, isn't it? So everything is very systematically arranged in nature, and it is the responsibility of those in the human form of life to learn about these different laws, so that we can live in peace and harmony, so to speak, with the laws of material nature. Otherwise, we are going against these laws, breaking these laws, and therefore we are ourselves the cause of so much of our. Ultimately, we are the cause of our own suffering. So. Then the purport Prabhupada is telling according to the materialistic way of life, if a poor man, after laboring very, very hard, gets a material profit at the end of his life, he's considered a success. But this is a very shallow way of seeing things, as Prabhupada explains, because he is still struggling and under the influence of these modes of material nature. So this is what the saintly person here is narrating to Prahlad Maharaj, that even one achieves some kind of material success, and that is, majority of people are endeavoring, working very hard to get some kind of position or some kind of to make money, to gain materially. One who actually is in proper knowledge will understand that that is ultimately useless, because we are still caught up. Even somebody goes to the heavenly planets, isn't it? That's why we have no interest as devotees to aspire to go anywhere in the material world, because, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, from the highest to the lowest planet, all are places of misery. So therefore, Western people criticize people from India for not being very, passionate about life, isn't it? Why you're not, endeavoring and doing things because that is within the Vedic culture, that is not what will ultimately make me happy by becoming so-called materially successful. And of course, because of this lack of knowledge, the whole world is spinning around and totally absorbed in what is known in the world by different governments as economic development. The whole main focus is on developing materially. And actually, as of course Prabhupada would say, in this way, due to lack of knowledge, people are missing the point. So we wanted to cover, because the same theme is being elaborated upon here in these verses, and so we'll just continue with the next verse, which is text 32. This will lead us actually, after a few verses, this saintly person will start sharing with Prahlad Maharaj how simply by observing nature, by observing the behavior of different animals in nature, he has learned different things. Prabhupada makes this point a number of times also. We can learn so many things by studying the material nature. In other words, we can, the more we understand about material nature, the more we understand about material energy, the more we understand about the material creation, then we can further our understanding or appreciation of the creator of this material nature, isn't it? So text 32, I'll just, let's see here. Yeah. Pashyami dhaninam klesham lubdhanam ajitatmanam bhayad alabdha nidranam sarvato bhivishankinam. The Brahmana continued, I'm actually seeing how a rich man who is victim of his senses is very greedy to accumulate wealth and therefore suffers from insomnia due to fear from all sides, despite his wealth and opulence. So when we are on the materialistic platform, when we don't have money, we are hankering for money, and then we are in anxiety because we don't have money, and then when we have money, we are in anxiety how not to lose this money. So in the Prabhupada gives a nice purport to this verse, that is text 32. Greedy capitalists accumulate wealth under so many miserable conditions. The result being that because they collect money by questionable means, their minds are always agitated. That's why it is mentioned how the noblest profession, it is practically unknown. And actually, someone went around here in India, made a small documentary, asking people what is the most important profession, and everyone started guessing and whatnot. But very few actually came or gave the right answer. So he wanted to find out what common people think. So we know from tradition, the founding fathers of America knew this, and of course here in India it's well known as well, that the noblest profession is agriculture, isn't it? Agriculture, where one makes an honest living by working in a very simple way, where one is not after one's main goal and objective is not simply to accumulate wealth, which is today the we can say major deviation, especially in agriculture, where people are doing agriculture for the purpose of making more money. Actually, when we were asking as part of the survey this question, why don't you do natural organic farming? What answer would people give?
No income.
No profit. We won't get the kind of profit that we're getting. Yeah. But this is very like short-sighted, because they get for a few years, possibly more, but meantime their soil is being depleted, their lifestyle is changed, their health is being affected, all of these things.
Get depleted, everyone's soil will be depleted.
Everyone's
soil will be depleted.
Everyone's
soil will be depleted.
soil, yeah, soil, correct, yeah, yes.
So they say like that.
Oh, okay. Well, they use this. They have all kinds of arguments that you see. I cannot introduce natural farming because everyone around me is doing unnatural. So all their insects will come to me. They have, many of these so-called ordinary village people. They're very intelligent, actually. But many of them are just like they're not properly guided. They're misled, because we need to understand how in society the vast majority of people need to be guided. I mean, every human being needs to be guided. It's not that some are special and that they're above guidance. Everyone, even the most powerful king, traditionally in the Vedic culture, understands the need to actually make his decisions or take decisions after consultation, isn't it? That's part of Arthashastra. The kings, they have a specific time of the day. I don't know if you read the details of the daily schedule of a king, Vedic king. Certain times of the day, it's all broken down and very specific as to what he does at a certain time. And one of those activities, of course, is to read Shastra. I read in the Kautilya Arthashastra how a king 3 times a day he will be connected with Shastra.
That's a training. Vidya Samudesh Adhikari. That's the first Prakaran.
First training.
Training.
Yes.
to train.
No, but that we get trained so that this activity continues in our life also, isn't it? It's like we get trained as a new bhakta to attend Mangal Arti, and we get trained to learn the different songs. So it's not that when we graduate from the bhakta program that we stop attending Mangal Arti or whatever. So yeah, it's part of the training. Training is like so essential. It's like a core concept and principle in the Vedic culture. Prabhupada would explain actually, and we see how when the young Pandavas went to Gurukul, you know, when they came back, they had spent so many years. How many years they spent? Quite a few years. They were gone for quite a few years. That was a tradition, and so they became, you know, when they came back, they were expert in so many different fields. Arjuna had become expert in archery, and then Bhim had become expert in the club, and Yudhisthira had become an expert in, what is it, the stick fighting, I think, like that, different expertise. So Prabhupada makes this point. I was just sharing how in answering the question that was asked once, when devotee was asking, well, how to set up, how to organize society, how to set things up, because, you know, especially those in the Western countries have had no contact with Vedic culture, and even things have become so degraded in India that how, you know, if we take, for example, a survey to find out what percentage of our existing devotees who are born here in India, what percentage of those devotees who have joined ISKCON and have become initiated, what percentage have gone to Gurukul, to traditional Gurukul? It's less than 1%. I mean, practically very, very few, which is simply an indication of the fact that what was a fundamental and essential in the Vedic culture, from a young age, receiving proper material training and proper spiritual training, because you cannot just receive. Modern society has gone on one extreme, just focusing on so-called material training, and that so-called material training is not according to Shastra, is not following the prescribed duties that are recommended in the Shastra. You know, technology. Prabhupada mentions how India is not meant for technology. For that matter, the whole world is not meant for the kind of technology that we have in modern day society, because that kind of technology is continuing to ruin the planet, because we are, you know, to keep up, just like it has been calculated how the United States of America, although having maybe less than 5% of the world population, is you know, consuming 30 to 35% of the natural resources on the planet, and every country is supposed to become like America. Well, you know, simple mathematics, it doesn't equate. But even one country is overexploiting. I mean, overexploiting. We shouldn't exploit at all, but it is overusing, massively exploiting the natural resources, and therefore we, you know, so we don't have this knowledge. And just like this course that was being given a few days back on the subject matter of agriculture, you know, what we call Vedic agriculture, natural natural agriculture is Vedic agriculture. Natural, yeah, Vedic agriculture based on Shastra. You know, I'm sure many of our devotees don't realize or never really thought about it, that actually agriculture is based on Shastra. Cow care is based on Shastra. Sex life is based on Shastra. You know, people don't like to hear about these things, but means there is a proper way to do things and an improper way to do things. And because we've not been trained, we've not been trained in the proper way to do things, to see things, to understand things, then we're doing everything the wrong way. And therefore, we're making a mess of the world, beginning with making a mess of our own selves, isn't it? And therefore, people wonder why individuals don't get along. And some of the, very interesting, I was just reading that this morning, and that is something I want you to start reading also. Because in visiting these villages, and that's why it's so important to visit villages. But you know, if we are not really understanding what Prabhupada is trying to accomplish, then we won't visit villages. We won't even think about villages. We won't think about cows. We won't think about all these things. But those are like, when you hear directly, I mean, I have like hours and hours of, you know, I guess you could call it maybe Gramya Kotha in a different sense. I mean, Gramya Kotha, we generally, in the context of Vaishnava tradition, means useless talk. But I refer to Gramya Kotha in the context of what I'm speaking now as directly words from village people when they were being asked, you know, one of the questions was, what are the good, you know, good aspects of your village? What strong points do you have in your village? Oh yeah, our village, you know, has very good land, and we get good crops, and then you know, you go to the next village. Our land is also not so bad, but we don't have any water. We don't have, you know, water irrigation properly, not in place. I mean, so many things are there, and the idea is that we can see by the kind of response that it's like hearing. Who is it? It was Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra would remove his royal dress and just wear ordinary dress and just walk around to hear what people have to say. Because otherwise, if he goes around dressed as a king, no one's going to say anything, and they're not going to be able to relate to him. You know, simple, ordinary folks. So if he dresses like them, then he can mix easily, and then he can actually, you know, hear. So very so this aspect of training and education, they actually go hand in hand. Training is means education also. Is very much lacking, and therefore Prabhupada on so many occasions, you know, stressed this point of introducing the kind of training and education that is referred to in the Shastra. And then we won't get the kind of negative reactions and difficulties and complications. Did I start reading?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. We started to read, I think, but just at the beginning.
30 seconds.
Started to, yeah, okay. So, how much did we read from the purport? 2 lines, yeah. So So we'll start with the second line here. Thus, they are unable to sleep at night, and they have to take pills for mental tranquility to invite sleep. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the many side effects. And sometimes even the pills are are a failure. Well,
So much intention.
we can go beyond pills also, but we won't mention the V name. And sometimes even the pills are a failure. Um,
Consequently.
people have to take sleeping pills, and some people have to take wake-up pills. I don't know how they take wake-up pills. Well, they take pills to stay awake.
That's why they drink coffee and
Coffee and tea, and then of course they'll chew on something or whatever, things like that. Yeah, and this way they become addicted. Consequently, the result of having accumulated money by so much labor is certainly not happiness, but only distress. It's a fact, isn't it? People, it's like people migrate to a new place, lose connection with their families, with their friends, and just because there's a higher pay, one will get more money, you know, because everyone wants to have a similar standard of living as others. What is the value of acquiring a comfortable position if one's mind is always disturbed, which is the situation today? Narottam Das Thakur has therefore sung Samsara Bishanale Dabinishi Hiya Jvale Judaite Na Kainu Upai, which is translated as follows: I'm suffering from the poisoned effect of material enjoyment. Thus, my heart is always burning and is almost on the verge of failure. End of quote. The result of the greedy capitalist's unnecessary accumulation of wealth. You know, we say there's an expression in English, this guy is filthy rich. You've heard filthy. Filthy means dirty. You know. Like a filthy place or a filthy mind. Dirty, yeah. So some people are so rich, that expression somehow has come about. Filthy rich. I mean, it's like, you know.
so much.
I mean, people are. It used to be like the goal for many people in the West used to be to become a millionaire. Nowadays, it's very easy to become a millionaire. The real thing is to be a billionaire, to have many millions, you know. And some people have hundreds of billions of dollars. But still, that is not what makes. Yeah. That is not what will make them happy. Such a life is certainly not very happy, but because of the spell of the illusory energy, materialistic persons engage in such activities. Because by nature we have to engage in activity. So if we don't know about spiritual activity, we will engage in material activity. As far as our Krishna consciousness movement is concerned, we're getting money naturally by the grace of God by selling our literature. That, yes, that was happening, it's still happening. This literature is not sold for our sense gratification. To spread the Krishna consciousness movement, we need so many things, and Krishna is therefore supplying us the requisite money to advance this mission. The mission of Krishna is to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And for this purpose, we naturally must have sufficient money. So we are not in any way against money. Prabhupada would give the example of sadhus in India who never touch money. If by chance somehow they accidentally touch money, for them it's like touching women. They have to take a bath, or they have to become purified. And then Prabhupada would explain, we're not that kind of sannyasi. If somebody has money, we will put both hands out. We will accept with both hands, not only with one hand. Therefore, according to the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, we should not give up the attachment to money that can spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Yukta Vairagya. Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubi parityago vairagyam falgu kachyate. Yeah, which means when persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things which are related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, though they are material, this is called incomplete renunciation. Just like our Brahmananda, one of the first devotees who joined the movement in New York. So when Prabhupada was first meeting him, because it was every day they could meet Srila Prabhupada, and so Prabhupada was asking him, so what are you doing? Because he had told Prabhupada, I want to become your student. I want to join full time, after a few days, after a short time. And then Prabhupada would naturally, would often, not often, always be asking, well, what are you doing? And he would ask about their personal life and like that. So then Brahmananda was telling that, oh, I have a job, as a teacher. Okay. Then Prabhupada's next question was, how much do you make? How much money? What's your pay? So he told, okay, he made so much money a month. So then Prabhupada told him, you continue to work. You continue to work, because we're just in the beginning stage here, and you can help, So all the money he was getting in the initial stage was helping to pay the rent at 26 Second Avenue. So money is important, but it has to be acquired in honest means and whatnot. So this point is being made here. Money that can help in spreading the Krishna consciousness movement is not part of the material world. This is the vision of the devotee. We're using microphones, and these cell phones are not material cell phones. Because they are utilizing Krishna service. And we should not give it up thinking that it is material. Srila Rupa Goswami advises, Na saktasya vishayan yatham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Translation to the Bhakti Rasamrita text 12255. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Money is undoubtedly coming in great quantities, but we should not be attached to this money for sense gratification. Every cent, right? Every cent. Prabhupada is not writing every paisa. He said every cent. Should be spent for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, not for sense gratification. Of course, every cent means also every paisa. There is danger for a preacher when he receives great quantities of money, for as soon as he spends even a single cent of the collection for his personal sense gratification, he becomes a fallen victim. The preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement should be extremely careful not to misuse the immense quantities of money needed to spend, or to spread rather, this movement. Let us not make this money the cause of our distress. It should be used for Krishna, and that will cause our eternal happiness. Money is Lakshmi, or the goddess of fortune, the companion of Narayana. Lakshmi ji must always remain with Narayana. And then there need be no fear of degradation. So, yeah. So that's, yeah. These are important instructions. We won't have time to read the other verses. We'll do that tomorrow. Any comment, thought, or question? Yes.
So my question is, anything we can use in Krishna's service that is transcendental?
Anything that we use in Krishna's service is transcendental, if it is according to Shastra, Guru, and Sadhu. Not anything that we concoct ourselves. So what's the
Like
question?
microphone we are using,
Yeah.
that is becoming transcendental, and we use this cement building, we use cities.
Yes.
People they say, so whatever we are using and we are doing the corporate job, that is for the service, and we are also living in the cities, so our time is saved, life is saved, energy is saved. So we can do nice chanting, nice bhakti. So that's everything we are doing for the service of the Krishna.
So why village and why Varnashram?
Huh?
Why village and why Varnashram?
Maybe I should repeating question.
Okay, yeah. So some people, the question is that, or the comment is that we ourselves as devotees are following this philosophy that we're just reading about by explained by Srila Rupa Goswami. All of the things that we are using, we consider them spiritual. So then people will come along and say, well, I'm having a corporate job, but I'm spending some money to serve the Lord. I'm also connecting things. I'm also doing Yukta Vairagya. So what is the need to change? Is it?
What is the need to go for the villages and by accepting Varnasrama?
Why speak about village? And why push so much about Varnashram?
Yes.
Why become fanatic about Varnashram? No, some people. I'm just adding this. Some people are fanatic about Varnashram. I mean, for some people, even if you mention the word Varnashram more than 3 times in a conversation, you're a fanatic. Even if the discussion happens to be about Varnashram, naturally you're gonna mention the word Varnashram more than once in your conversation. So the idea is that it requires a few things. One of them is understanding the orders of the spiritual master. In our case, the founder Acharya remains the Shiksha Guru for all the members of our society, because we're reading his purports every day in the Bhagavatam classes, if we attend Bhagavatam class. And that's part of the problem, is that people are not having that full or deep or complete understanding of what Prabhupada is speaking on the topic of Varnasrama, on the topic of renunciation, etc. So we therefore are also, in addition to not following the instruction or the orders of the spiritual master, who wanted ISKCON as a society actually to give the proper example. Not only should we speak about what is, this section is dealing about chapter 11, perfect society for social divisions. Chapter 12, perfect society for spiritual divisions. Chapter 13, the behavior of a perfect person. We're hearing about perfection. There's perfection in terms of society. There's perfection in terms of an individual. So those guidelines for that perfection are given in the Shastra, And that ideal perfect society, as described in the Shastra, is an agrarian society, an agrarian-based society. Not that there are no cities in such a culture, as very often people who are not liking so much or understanding about Varnasrama will say, why you're against cities? There were cities. We don't deny that, but we must see things in proper perspective. Cities were not the mainstay for the vast majority of people. We need to understand what is taking place under our very eyes every single day of our lives, is that there presently is and has been a whole program for bringing people out of the villages and increasing, there's a whole movement which has been planned by the leaders around the world to increase what is called urbanization, to increase people, to increase the population of people living in the cities for a number of different reasons, because people ultimately are more easily to control, they're less independent, and there are so many different explanations and reasons why they're doing this. Of course, the main reason is that they are not knowing about dharma. They don't know about what is meant to be the natural way to live. They don't know the first thing they don't know. Prabhupada explains how the main problem and the main disease in modern day society is that people don't know or have forgotten what is the goal of life. Goal of life is to become self-realized. So therefore, when that becomes clearly understood, we arrange our lives accordingly. Because it is not understood in modern day society, the goal of life is to develop materially through different types of economic plans and whatnot. Because the philosophy, the understanding, the wrong understanding, is that the more we can develop materially, we'll be happy, isn't it? The more we can become like America, we'll be happy. Which is the opposite of reality. Huh?
Devotees, after hearing also goal of the life. So
okay, so then one can counter argue that, well, many of our devotees know about the goal of life.
yes,
And they still have the same argument that why should we be so much after villages or about wanting to implement Varnasrama. We know the goal of life, and in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya has clearly quoted from Shastra and clearly established that Kalo Nastiva Gatiranjata, Harinam. Yeah, the Harinam, just chant the holy name, be happy, chant and be happy, right?
wherever you are there.
Chant, dance, feast and be happy. Forget about everything else. But this is not what Prabhupada has taught us. Prabhupada has taught us to chant and be happy, of course. He has clearly, nicely explained also, but I think you had not yet come here. Not yet arrived in Mayapur, but maybe just a few days ago, just maybe the day before you came, we were discussing, I was mentioning how Prabhupada in one discussion explains to the devotees to whom he's speaking with that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he, especially in Jagannath Puri, in the last period of his life, was living in seclusion. He was totally absorbed in Gopi Bhava. He was simply remembering the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. He was in that mood. He wanted nothing, from the moment he took sannyas, even before that, but especially from the moment he took sannyas, he just completely negated everything material. And then Prabhupada said, but we will not do like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We will not falsely, follow something that we cannot follow. We cannot imitate. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We cannot imitate Namacharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur, who can sit down and chant for 22 hours or more and be happy doing it, right? And remain conscious in doing that. And Prabhupada would give the example that, because that was part of the argument also, that very interesting arguments or discussions that were taking place, whereby some devotees were telling, but we, up until now, until these discussions on Varnasrama, Prabhupada, I thought that because it's Kali Yuga, because we're part of the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we just be satisfied in being Vaishnavas. We have been taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that the highest level of self-realization is to become a follower, Vishnu follower, and to know that Krishna is the origin of Vishnu, and to be Vaishnavas and simply focus on chanting. That is the Yuga Dharma. It is there in the Shastra. Then Prabhupada replied to that, it is not so easy to be Vaishnava. It is not so easy to be Vaishnava, and to become Vaishnava, it is necessary to follow Varnasrama. Prabhupada made that statement also. He made many similar kind of statements. So we need to properly hear and learn the many instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, and we need to balance them, of course, with the not to minimize this aspect that bhakti in itself is sufficient. The holy name is sufficient actually for one to become liberated from this material world and the process of bhakti. At the same time, because when we hear such statements that chanting the holy name is sufficient to become liberated, one is automatically liberated when one is purely chanting the holy name. How many people are chanting purely the holy name? How many people are totally, completely disconnected from the modes of material nature? Isn't it? Even amongst Vaishnavas, although we are told, we are instructed by our acharyas, anyone who even once is chanting the holy name, that person should be honored. That person is not an ordinary person. So anyone who's chanting the holy name, even though he may be a beginner, he should be given all respect. At the same time, we should understand that one doesn't become freed from these modes of material nature immediately simply by taking up to the chanting of the holy name. The doors to liberation are open. His path to become freed from this material world is open. And as long as one remains on that path, he will be freed from this material world sooner or later. But these are the instructions of all of our acharyas, beginning from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that Varnasrama is an integral part of the process for the vast majority of individuals, and therefore it is referred to. I was just sharing with Bharatchandra Prabhu a couple of days ago. He sent me a nice quote, and I sent him another quote from Srila Prabhupada, who was in one of the purports of the Bhagavatam at the beginning, equating Sanatan Dharma with Varnasrama Dharma, and then equating Varnasrama Dharma with divine culture. Because we may say that Varnasrama is a materialistic system, but it is a materialist system that is become spiritualized because asrama is there. It's not only Varna. There's Varna and asrama. Spiritualized activities, spiritualized consciousness, isn't it? So, to answer the question, even many of our devotees may have these arguments, but they are not in keeping with this so many instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, and they're not in keeping with what is meant to be the norm. It's like we accept it as a norm, as something that is natural to everyday chant the holy name. In another context, we should know that the norm in terms of lifestyle, the norm in terms of occupation in society is, in the Vedic culture, the Vedic norm of lifestyle is agrarian lifestyle, is village lifestyle. And many of our devotees will oppose this.
But those norms are given now. So when we see the 4 regulative principles, so no cheating, automatically everything comes. Because
Yes. So that means that we're not living according to we're not deeply understanding what those are.
those 4 principles are very regulative principles, covers the big spectrum.
Yeah, they are the pillars of dharma. They're described as the pillars of dharma, the 4 pillars, the 4 rules and regulations that we follow. And Prabhupada made statements whereby, if to become situated on the platform of nistha, steadiness, one must follow these 4 rules and regulations, isn't it? So therefore, nistha is where one can actually, as described again in the Bhagavatam, it is on the platform of nistha that one can nicely begin to practice devotional service. One can begin before that, but it's only when one attains the level of nistha, which means peaceful mind. Evam prasanna manaso, bhagavat bhakti yogataha, bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When one reaches that platform, then he can begin to understand things properly. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita also, chapter 14, only when one who is situated in the mode of goodness, all the reactions of the sinful activities are burnt away.
Yeah. The wise sage, free from all material association and unbewildered, should subdue his senses and worship me. He should conquer the modes of passion and ignorance by engaging himself only with things in the mode of goodness.
Where is that?
It's 11th canto 25th chapter 34.
Yes.
So he is saying that.
Who's speaking?
Krishna is speaking to Uddhava.
Okay.
So he should conquer the modes of passion and ignorance by engaging himself only with the things in the mode of goodness.
Yes. Yes.
A wise sage, that means free from all material association and unbewildered, should subdue his senses and worship me. So he should conquer the modes of passion and ignorance by engaging himself only with the things in the mode of goodness. Actually, here he explains these 3 modes. So Krishna explains to Uddhava. There, until unless if you are not situated in the Ananya Bhakti,
yes.
Before that, one has to keep on worshipping the Lord, and also should follow his karma, dharma,
yes.
But he should try to fix himself in all the time in the mode of goodness.
The mode of goodness. Yes. So you're taking reference from Krishna's instructions
yes.
to Uddhava in the 11th canto.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that section is similar to this section in terms of, what Narada Muni is.
Yes.
Because this same, what is it?
So, next shloka is like this.
Yeah.
Then, being fixed in devotional service, the sage should also conquer the material mode of goodness by indifference towards the modes. So that is a gradual step. So next, being in the devotion, so he has to conquer that mode of goodness also. That means he should beyond the modes. That is ananya.
Yeah. Yeah. So there.
Situated in the ananya.
Yes.
Sarvadharma parityaja.
Yes.
So that is the beginning of the devotion.
Yes. Yes. So that is,
devotion.
yes.
That is the beginning of pure devotion. Before that, everyone has to
come
know
to the
his
mode of
bhakti
goodness.
and also dharma, and try to fix himself in the mode of goodness.
Yes. So this is very directly connected with in the chapter Divinity and Divine Service, chapter 2 of the first canto. Tada raja samo bhava kama lobadayasya chita etairana vidham stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. Actually, there's more to be discussed on this, but the time is running out right now. But the point you're making, the point Krishna is making, actually, is that until we become situated in the mode of pure, unalloyed devotional service, we must become situated in the mode of goodness.
Yes.
And
We
then
should-
from
yeah.
and then from that mode of goodness,
Goodness plus devotion. We have to do devotion
Yes.
along with our dharma.
yes, and there are prescribed duties and responsibilities that one should be doing according to
Shastra.
Shastra. Right. Yeah. So it means basically, just to close up on this, same instruction as given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Those Vaishnavas who who want to make progress, even though they may be still in their conditioned state, should follow Varnasrama. And Varnasrama is progressively leading individuals towards the mode of goodness. And of course, beyond the mode of goodness, to the mode of Shuddha Sattva, yeah, pure goodness, correct. Okay, we can close for now. Yes. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Pinandi.